Well, good morning and good afternoon, those that are listening, and welcome to this general introduction to eagle.io. In this presentation, we're going to be running through the key features of the platform, the different methods for ingesting data. If you're brand new to eagle.io, this is a great start. And even if you have been utilizing eagle.io somewhat, hopefully you can take some value from some of the new features we'll be running through with a little bit of detail today as well. Let's jump right into it and have a look at some data in the system. So the first thing, when you log into an account with eagle.io, and you might have been shared access or you've got an account directly with us, is that we have, the first site that you see is Google Maps, and it's been integrated into the system to provide an overview of where our assets are deployed out in the field. And we also have the satellite view, which will also show you a bit more detail, a bit more about the information going on here. So we can zoom in and hover over our little map markers, what we call them, and that'll provide the latest site photo and the latest sensor data that come in from that site. If you have cameras out in the field near your remote monitoring stations, you can program those cameras up to FTP or email an image to us every 5 to 10 seconds, and we will receive them so you have eyes on your assets. On the far left, we have the workspace tree, and this is where we configure up all of our different projects and separate different end clients that we're managing data for, and they create their own unit of security, these little workspaces. And as we expand on them, it'll show us more assets that have been configured in that workspace just there. So that's the main map view when you first log into eagle.io, and we'll go into a bit more detail about how to configure up all the hierarchy in the workspaces tree later. But I want to show you through the 5 different views that we're offering. So you have the main map view, which will give you a summary of your assets. And then we have the list view, which will be focusing on the different parameters coming in and their latest values and what state each of those parameters are in. So you can see here that everything is normal. That means that no alarm thresholds have been exceeded on that particular sensor. And so the state is normal and good to go. But of course, if any of those are exceeded, the description of your alarm will appear here. A red badge will appear and you'll know an alarm has gone off. Also displays here where the latest data arrived into the system. We have the attachments view, which is a place where you can upload arbitrary files that are important to you. So that can be PDFs, site maintenance reports, updated site photos that you've taken, and they can just be dragged and dropped onto the user interface, and we'll just upload that, and you've got a little reference and a storage area to have all your documents and attachments in there. We have the chart view. This is a place where we will chart all your individual sensors, and we allow you to apply a fair bit of customization to these charts. So you can zoom in and see a higher resolution of data at any particular point. You can also apply an aggregate of your liking to any of these charts. That might be for the battery voltage, you'd like to see an average every 5 minutes, and they can be applied for you on the fly here as well. Okay. We also bring in custom charts. This is a place where you can position multiple sensors on the one chart for further analysis and apply more 3D shading and increasing the line width and marker types and all of that. And we can build some of these shortly as well in the system. We also bring in windrows data as well. So if you're looking for a custom chart to be dealing with some weather data, we also bring in the windrows as a custom chart. We have the events view, which is a place like an audit trail, essentially, of how, when, and why things have changed in the system. So when you've logged into the system, you can always check the events view to see when data arrived, when an alarm went off, who deleted that data source in the system, or who's changed something. It's all there, and very helpful to go back, especially when you've shared your assets with many people. And then finally, we have the 5th view up on the top right up here, which is the dash view, essentially bringing all your data together. So you can bring in your custom charts that you've built for windroses and historical charts, positioning on the map, and your site photos coming in, and some key sensors being presented by the gauges. Okay, these are just a couple of examples. We also bring in the ability to create summary dashboards where you can bring in multiple different sites into the one dashboard to provide more of an overview of what's going on at a particular network on a dashboard. Okay, so those are 5 different views that we offer with your data with eagle.io. I guess the next step really is how do you build all of this into the system? Let's start from the very beginning. The first thing we do is we create a new workspace in the system. And up on the top left up here, you'll see that workspace can be created. It will appear in your workspaces tree, and you can create in that workspace a location. We can flick over to the map view now, and we can position where we're actually installing a particular site. And this, for example, let's install a weather station on the east coast of Australia. So we can zoom right in on the location that we're deploying it. We'll pick a pretty place, Fraser Island, those that have been lucky enough to visit. And we can just position on the map there. Little customization available with the icon, so we can choose a different color and choose some wind for the weather station, and then we can upload a site photo. So when you're doing the install, take a photo of the remote monitoring station that you've deployed and upload that, and we can save that now. So we have our location on the map and we have our site photo in place. The next step is in that location, in our workspaces tree, we want to create a data source. A data source is essentially how you bring data into the system. And we have 3 different methods that we support for data ingestion. The first one is we accept text file data. So if you can get your data into a text file format, we shouldn't have any issues with parsing that and bringing that into the system. Many devices out in the field have the ability to push a file by email or FTP, and it's a very straightforward method of getting data into eagle.io. The second option is we do support a range of industry standard data loggers, and you can see here we've got a list of them here, and an extended list also consists on our documentation under device configuration. And any of these you can read a little more details about how to configure them up to point data to eagle.io. This example, I'm just going to start with bringing in some text file data. Okay. This is where the system, again, the wizard continues on and assists us in configuring up on how we want to bring text file data into eagle.io. And we have a range of different transport types we support. Upload to FTP at eagle.io, so FTPing data directly to us. We can also read files from a Dropbox account. Amazon S3 is available, MQTT, which is becoming more and more popular with the IoT networks. SMS data to eagle.io. So you can be out in the field, take a manual reading of something and actually SMS data in to the system. Pretty convenient. We can also strip data from a live URL from a website. So a lot of government agencies will provide a URL, then you can just grab text file data from the website. And we can also grab files from your FTP server as well. I'm just going to present 2 different methods today. The first one's going to be via Dropbox, and I'll also do how to FTP data into the system as well. Let's start with Dropbox. First thing I'll ask you to do is actually connect to your Dropbox account. And so I've actually got to log into that now. I'm just going to use my personal Dropbox for this example. So let's have a quick look here. Okay, as it attempts to sign into my Dropbox account, eagle.io is going to ask if it can install an eagle.io apps folder in your Dropbox account. And I'm going to authorize that by saying allow here. And now I can sync a file into the eagle.io apps folder in my Dropbox account. And that's where I'm putting all of my text file data into. Obviously, so eagle.io isn't exposed to all the other assets in your Dropbox account. It only can see data in your apps folder. And I'm going to ask Dropbox to collect data from that eagle.io apps folder every 10 minutes. And I can choose a time zone as well. And as I select next, it's going to read any files that I've actually put into that little apps folder. And so I've got quite a few in there, but I'm just going to choose one just here and apply. This is just a standard text file, CSV file that I've saved in there. That'll take us to the wizard in the parser. And this is describing how that text file looks. And so eagle.io knows how to parse it moving forward as it continuously receives every 10 minutes some fresh files. You can see that the parsing engine has broken it up into a range of different columns. And on the far left, we have our record time. So we've got date and timestamp. And everything that is white in the parser means it understands it. Everything that is red, it needs a little help with. And we can see that we've actually said all these different columns here are numbers. We've actually got some text data here, so it's a little bit confused. We can let it know that's actually the sensor names, which we call the labels row. So let's go, number 2 is the labels row, and they'll illuminate purple, and it will name each of these different columns these sensor names now. If, for an example, the timestamp was bright red as well, it would mean that it doesn't understand the time format. And so what you might need to do is go into the configurator button and overwrite the format here so it mirrors what it is in the text file. And once it's parsed appropriately, you can close that off and apply those rules now. We only have to do that once, and every time it receives a new file in the Dropbox account now, it will automatically ingest it into the system. As we select next, the system will describe the different sensors that it's picked up from the file, and we can add some units as well at this point, and we can finish that off. And now in our workspaces tree, you can see that the sensor names have appeared, and the system has gone out and grabbed 2,099 records from those files, and we can look at our parameters and actually see the values are now in the system. So we've got some data in. If we flick over to the chart view, you'll be able to see all those data being charted instantly. Zoom in, see a higher resolution of data, zoom out again, and we'll apply some customization to these charts in just a minute. What we might do is just focusing on getting some alarms configured up on this data. So let's focus on something important here, which is mainly the battery voltage. Out in a remote location with a weather station, we want to keep eyes on the battery voltage and ensure that everything is running smoothly. So let's configure up an alarm on that particular sensor. By going to the configurator button on the far right, we can open it up and head to states. Here we'd like to add a state, and we're going to call this one high, and I'd like to be notified when that battery voltage gets to 14 volts. We allow for more customization with when do you want to be notified, when it becomes active or inactive or both or never. I'm just going to leave it on active. We can also categorize the type of alarm that this is. Okay, so if you're configuring up a range of different alarms, you can say, well, I'm going to configure some alarms up for operations or for maintenance or for critical. And then when you share access to somebody, you ask them to subscribe to a certain category of alarms and they'll receive those specific ones. We can also set a custom message in here as well. So this might be something like, hi, maintenance team, please visit site, solar panels are overcooking, being at 14 volts. We can also add a low alarm as well. So let's add one right now. So let's call this one low. And when it drops below 11, I'd like to be notified. And as I save that, eagle.io will automatically set the high alarm to the top and the low alarm to the bottom. But it's your responsibility to grab normal down the very bottom and position it in between the two. Well, that's gone to the top. Position them in between the two. So now we can see that we've got between 11 volts and 14 volts, there is no alarm state. Above 14 or below 14, there is an alarm state. As we save that, we've configured an alarm in the system, but now we want to receive alerts and notifications via SMS and email. And the way we do that is simply by clicking the eyeball on that sensor. It'll illuminate dark blue. So now you know you're subscribing to alerts and notifications on that particular sensor now. Now, of course, as you configure up alarms on all of your sensors, you can subscribe to all of them if need be. If we look at the chart view, you can also see that we've applied an alarm on the battery voltage, and you can see that we've got an alarm threshold line appearing here saying high. So whenever you configure up an alarm, we'll actually describe and show you those alarms, and you can see when your data is trending towards an alarm state. Okay, let's build a custom chart with some of this data. So let's start with, in the location, we can create a chart. We'll begin with a historical chart. Always starts off with a blank canvas, but we can drag and drop the sensors directly onto the chart. Okay, so we've got battery voltage and we've got temperature. All right, so we can't really see a lot of information there because we aren't doing any automatic Y scaling of the Y-axis. So what we need to do is go into the properties of that custom chart and head into the axes and add some. So I want to put one in for battery voltage, and we'll put one in for position that one on the left-hand side of the axis, and we'll position one for temperature on the right-hand side. Once we've got them in there, we can go to the links and ensure that they are aligned appropriately. So battery voltage is with battery voltage, and temperature is with now temperature. As we save that, we'll auto-scale the Y-axis and we can zoom in, see a better reflection of that data now and our alarm thresholds. So we have our custom chart configured up. We can also create a windrows for those that are dealing with weather station data. So let's create another custom chart, choose the windrows, and we can position on there the wind speed and direction. Okay, so we have our windrows created instantly. Very, very quickly we can make these changes in eagle.io. So we've got our data in via the Dropbox. We've configured up some alarms and we've built up some custom charts. It's time to bring that all together into the dashboard. So we can go into the location and head to create, and we'll choose a dashboard here. We have a range of tiles that you choose to build your dashboard. So we can start with about the location of the site. And then we can bring in an alarm summary. So any alarms that have gone off, we'd like to be notified. We have an attachment image. So those that have an image of the site you can upload, or if you've got a camera on site, this is where you can upload your photos in real time, have them displaying and updating in the dashboard. We can bring in a value list, and we'll bring in a custom chart, and we'll bring in finally a gauge. So once we have our tiles on the dashboard, we just grab the bottom right of them and actually allow you to size them up and to move them around and to build something that tells a story of what's going on at your site in real time. So we'll look at the value list here. We've got a gauge up on the left. We'll bring in a little summary of any alarms that have gone off, and we might position this nice windrows just here. Expand this one out. And then we might just add one last tile, which can be a historical table. Okay, so we've built the tiles in a flow that is meaningful, and now we position data onto the chart. So with the location on the map, we just drag and drop. We can allow you to go into the properties of the location tile, head to the satellite view and zoom in to get a better perspective of that weather station at Fraser Island. We'd like to see a gauge showing the battery voltage, and we'd like to see an alarm summary for all of the sensors. So we only configured an alarm up for the battery voltage, but if we'd done so for the rest of the parameters, we can drag the text file source onto there, and that'll watch all the sensors. Our attachment image can be our site photo of the weather station. Our value list, we can bring in all of our parameters. Our custom chart we can use for our windrows. And then finally, a historical table. I'd like to see some historical data for the temperature. So very quickly, we can build up these dashboards. They only took 30 seconds, but if you spend 5 minutes, you can really build something fancy, listening to obviously how people want them built and make changes very quickly in the system. All of these tiles are color customized, and you can reconfigure them at any stage. I'm just going to quickly show you how to bring in data via FTP now. So we've brought it in via Dropbox. Let's head into the location and create another data source. This time we're going to choose File, and we're going to leave it at upload to ftp.eagle.io. It will create a unique ID just here for every data source that you select FTP as the transport type. We're going to copy that and use that in a minute. I can select Next here and browse for the file again. So I'm just going to use the same data. Let's have a quick look here. So I've grabbed that text file, I apply it, the parsing engine reads it, I describe that this is the labels row, number 2, apply, select next, and finish. Now all of those sensors should appear in our second data source. Hasn't received any data yet, so as you program your device up out in the field to FTP the file directly to eagle.io, you're using that unique username that it created. I've just got a little FTP client on my desktop here, which I'll use as an example. So let's just ingest some data via that method now. That unique username, drug tooth bench, is always a unique 3-word slogan. Not that one there. Let's bring in. Okay, so I've just thrown that file into my FTP server. and you can see straight away now that data has been ingested as well. All the values have arrived via FTP. So that's the process of getting text file data in the system. There's obviously many different transport types that you're welcome to explore and play around with it. They're the two most popular ones, being Dropbox and FTP. And what I might show you now is how to connect up to a data logger that we currently support. So we do support the Campbell Scientific Data Logger range, and I'll show you the process of connecting one of them pretty quickly. So in the location again, we can create another data source, but this time I'm going to bring in a Campbell Scientific Data Loggers data. As I select next, we choose the model of what that logger is and select next, and we ask for which transport type you'd like to use to communicate with that logger. So the first one is TPC client, and that is when your device is connected to the internet and it has a fixed IP or an internet address that you can use. You can enter that here and connect directly to it, or you can use TPC callback, and that is when you have the modem do some of the communication and sparse between acquiring the data between the logger and ingesting into eagle.io. And we do supply a modem for a plug and play with the Campbell loggers out in the field. If that's something of interest, reach out to me after the webinar and we can have further discussions. I'm just going to communicate with a logger that's sitting in our office just here, which has an internet address and a port number. And when I'm configuring it up, we allow you to describe how often you want to receive the data from the file, from the logger. So let's say every 10 minutes we want to grab data. And on the initial collection, I just want to grab the most recent data for this example. Choose my time zone and select next. Automatically set up all the parameters. We can look at our list view and our source view now, and we can see that that Campbell logger is trying to connect to the system. Just give that 20 seconds and we should be able to see some parameters come in from that device. You can see that it's downloading now. So we can click on our Campbell logger in the workspaces tree, and of course all our sensor names have appeared and we've got some data coming in. So very quickly we can communicate with these remote devices out in the field. And with the Campbell loggers, we also support the ability to do two-way communication, so remote control aspects, turning pumps on and off, opening and closing gates, and doing firmware updates to the logger remotely as well. Let's move on and have a look at some of the features that we're offering with the actual data now that we've got it ingested into the system and can visualize it. One of our new features that we've implemented is templates. This is a great feature that allows you to do fast deployments in the system and ensure consistent configuration for larger deployments. So as we expand, you can see we have our little templates icon in the workspaces tree, and I've pre-configured up some templates. So it is a location and it is a text file source with some parameters and some pre-configured dashboards and custom charts like we've just built. And now that I've created a new workspace here today, instead of creating a new location and a new data source and configuring up a new site, I can just go create an instance, which is a direct, not just a copy, but it's a version of the template that we've just built in the system just here, but it's in direct relationship with the template, meaning I can deploy as many of these instances from the template, and if I make any changes in the template, it will be reflected across all instances that have been created from it. So if you need to deploy 20 sites and ensure consistent configuration, you can build a template and create 20 instances from it. And then if you need to reflect a change across all of those different instances, you can do it through the template. And if you need, for an example, a instance to have a unique configuration, we can always allow you to set overrides in the template to allow unique custom configuration to an instance. So you have full control of being able to provide a personal touch to each of these different instances, but when you're needing to ensure consistent configuration, it can be done through the template as well. We also brought in groups. Groups allow you to bundle up a group of people, obviously, and assign them into, let's have a quick look here. In your account settings under security, you have groups, and I've created one, and I've called it Beaver Creek, and in there we've got 2 different people. Just me with 2 different email addresses for now, but you might have 50 different people that you add to this particular group. Once you've got a number of people in a group, you can save that and then head back into your account, and you can assign a group to a workspace. So all of those people now receive access to a workspace, and you can also assign people to notifications as well. So again, you're managing a large number of people in the system, associated with one workspace with a very efficient method through groups. So in this workspace now, in security, I can head to the groups. We've got Beaver Creek there, and I'd like to provide everyone associated with Beaver Creek that I've configured and give them a user role, view, operate, and manage. So it's a great way of being able to share the data with a large number of people that have a common interest in a project. Let's look at sharing and security of the data now. So now that we've built some data up and we're brought in by 3 different methods, being Dropbox, FTP, and connecting to a KML logger, let's share this with the appropriate parties. The way we do that is by going to the workspace, and that is our unit of security. And we allow you to go into the security of that particular workspace and add someone to it. So I'm going to add myself for this example, and I want to give myself view-only access. We have 3 by default in the system: view, operate, and manage. We also allow you to customize your own user roles as well, which I'll cover in a minute. As I give this person view-only access and save, they'll receive an email saying you've been granted access to this particular workspace. You'll be able to log in and view the charts and the dashboards, but not delete or change anything. Those will require configure or manage user roles to be able to make those changes. You can see that an email has arrived up on the top right here, confirming that I've just received access to this particular workspace. We don't restrict you on how many people you share the data with. So go for gold and share it with as many people as you would like. We also have brought in a new feature called data editing. So we are going to be running a webinar in the new year. We're just documenting this particular feature, so I'm just going to run over it quickly. But essentially, we've allowed the client now to be able to edit your data in the browser. This is traditionally something that's been done by exporting the data in the past, running it through a third-party software, re-importing. But now in eagle.io, you can make these changes. So as we look at some water quality data just here, we can look at pond A. Now we can look at the chart view. And we've got the battery voltage just here. I'd like to zoom in and sort of focus on this smaller bit of data just here, where we've got a bit of a spike, a reverse spike happening here. I can go into the edit button up on the top right, and you can see now that chart is exposed to me all the raw records. So what we can do is select a large number of these records, and we can apply a quality code to the data. So I can confirm that this is all good data. And now we've got that assigned to each of these records just here. And you might be looking at this particular spike just here, and you could confirm that it's definitely bad data and you'd like to fix that up. You can just click it and actually freehand edit that data. So this is, yeah, it's pretty fun. You've got to be careful with it too. Of course, if you're a little bit scared to do the freehand editing, we allow you to set a value here as well and make those minute changes if that is helpful. And of course, we allow our clients to set annotations to the data. So you can put up here and say, all good. And whenever you share it with people, they can certainly confirm that someone's checked out that point of data and it's good to go. So the data editing is available. So we're bringing in the acquisition of data, the visualization, the alarming, the sharing, the editing, and fast deployments through templates. And we'll finish with one last feature here too with the data, and that is processing and logic. Processing and logic is a feature we brought in a couple of months ago, probably about 4 or 5 now, and it allows us to perform complex calculations on the data. So here's an example of how it works. So we can look at the text file source just here, and we've got the battery voltage and discharge and temperature, but we might want to, for an example, perform a calculation on some of these particular parameters coming in. We can go to the text file source and go into create a number process parameter. That is where a wizard will appear, essentially, and assist us using the language JavaScript to put in your own algorithms and formulas to do that calculation. And this might be 2, 3, 4, or 5 lines of code that's required. Obviously, you need programming skills for this. But being able to, for an example, you've got 10 different locations, all measuring a volume of water. You can point all of them into this particular, into a process parameter and calculate them to create a total, and then put that through some of your own business intelligence that you might have to create a new value of meaning for a project. So it's a very powerful tool, and we have extensive documentation on how to work the system and some examples of some processing and logic in our documentation you can refer to as well. Okay, we also support KML layers. So if you're looking at the map view and you'd like to enhance the visual experience via Google Maps with some more data, a lot of our clients use KML layers to do that. So I'm just going to show you an example of one of the Great Lakes of Michigan in the States here. So as I zoom out on our map view, we're going to be able to see a KML layer that's live, that we are stripping data from a government website for. So we'll zoom out. There we are. This is the Great Lakes of Michigan showing real-time water temperature. And these layers can be activated and deactivated at any stage. Other examples of KML layers that are used is real-time rainfall data. So those that might have weather stations out in the field that are able to get their hands onto a KML layer in that area, they'll be able to show real-time rainfall over that area and I guess support the data coming from your weather stations as well. Or if we need to set out grid lines on a certain area, KML layers are great for that as well. Okay. Now, getting your data out of the system. So once we've got it all in and we've configured it all up and we're sharing it, alarms are going off that potentially a project closes down and you'd like to get data out. We've made that with just a couple of easy steps. So we can go, let's go to the workspace level. We can head to historical data, head to export, and choose a custom time frame. So here we can choose, I'd like to export 1 month's worth of data, and we allow some more customization. So here you can choose to interleave all the sensors into one file or separate them, change the timestamp or the time zone. And on the far right, you'll apply an aggregate to your data. So as I mentioned before, maybe you'd like to see an average of battery voltage every 5 to 10 hours that can be assigned here. Once we've got it all done, we can export. That does a little download, and all that data now is saved onto your desktop into CSV files. So very quickly, you can get data out of the system when you need to. So let's just kind of finish there and provide a download link. Good to go. A couple of features on the back end of eagle.io. So those that are might be account owners, just a quick summary on the back end. Under account settings, we have the general view, which allows you to see what plan you're subscribing to and make changes to the size of your plan. You can also transfer ownership of the account if that needs to happen, and also closing your account. Under security, we have where you can add administrators to the account. So trusted business partners, people that are going to be exposed to all of your assets in your account. So it's important that you only share administration privileges to trusted people. Under groups, of course, we can create groups and assign many people into a unique group here, and then assign them to a workspace, and then assign them to notifications. We also have roles here as well. So as I mentioned before, we have 3 by default, and here it describes what each user role allows you to do in the system, but again, allow you to create your own one here with unique little privileges and save that. That will become a 4th user role in the system. Under workspaces, it provides a summary of all your different workspaces and how many devices are connected to them. Notifications, you can always upgrade and have more SMSs if you need them. Customization, this is where you can upload your own company logos to rebrand the platform as your own. So you just follow these instructions for the sizing of the actual logos, and under public content, just here a large banner image with some text if you need to. And as you save that, you can create yourself a rebranded landing page when logging into view your eagle.io account. If you have clients that are desiring to have logos of their own, you can always create them a separate account through your account through managed accounts and rebrand it for them. Okay. So that's a bit of an overview of the process of getting data in, visualizing it through charts and dashboards, alerting on the data. So you can, of course, figure out multiple high and low alarm thresholds and subscribe. And if you're an account owner, you also have the privilege to subscribe people to certain notifications as well. So we do that through the notifications manage, and then you choose the person you'd like to assign them to a notification, and then you can, of course, click any of the eyeballs and they will receive notifications for that particular workspace, location, or even just sensor. So we break it down for you. Okay. The chat box is open for those that have any questions. Feel free to chime in if you've got some questions. We've got some time to answer any. So or if it's something that you want to take offline and reach out to me after this webinar, I'd be more than happy to go about that as well. But feel free to fire off some. I'll be happy to try and answer them for you. A couple of other features you might be aware of. When creating a data source in eagle.io, we support the ability to ingest 20,000 records over a 24-hour period. So for each site, we support 5-second resolution data continuously. So it's a pretty generous and high resolution of data being ingested to a site if need be. And we allow our clients for each data source to have up to 100 sensors. So this is an example of a site with just 5 sensors, but you can have up to 100 sensors per data source as well. So we're generous on that side. If you, for an example, wanted to bring in multiple files into the one data source, for an example, you might have a weather station out in the field that has 3 or 4 different data loggers connected to it, and you'd like to point data into eagle.io all under the one location, under the one data source, that can be done as well. So what we can do is we can go into is a text file source that we configured up earlier on in the webinar. Let me close this one off. We have our text file source, and in here we can go into the properties of that text file source and into the series, and you can see add files. So we can continually add more and more files to this data source, up to 10 different files, which is great when you have, I guess, a range of different monitoring devices in the same location. You can all point them in under one location, and we only charge you for one data source. So that's a great way of getting different data sets into the one system. Any questions, guys? Feel free to fire them off. I think we've wrapped up probably a little bit earlier today. There's always more to talk about, but that just gives you a pretty good overview. We on our landing page of eagle.io, so we have extensive documentation. So on our landing page here, under More, we have, of course, details about compliance and service level agreement. We also have knowledge-based articles, but more importantly, we have documentation. So this is 350 pages worth of screenshots and descriptions about every feature in the system, from sharing and security, operation and control, device configuration. If there's something you want to drill down on and focus on more, just click on it, focus on the historical data, and we want to focus more on how to export it again, like I just showed you, and again, all those clear screenshots of the system, how to set it all up, and learning more and more about each feature in the documentation. We also have a YouTube channel where we've uploaded this webinar. We'll also post a link on our LinkedIn feed, so be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see that feed pop up, and you can rewatch this or share this with any other staff in your company that want to learn a bit more about introduction to eagle.io as well. When you're in the system, of course, you can chit-chat with other people as well that are associated with the same project. You can also reach out to support as well, and you can also expand the desktop to full screen, which is a good tool when looking at dashboards and wanting to make it full screen. So we can look at our summary dashboard now, showing all our different water quality monitoring sites streaming data in, and close up on the left just there, and it takes up the full screen. And then, of course, you can bring that workspace back. When deploying some sites in the system, we always encourage clients to use the templating feature where is appropriate, but you can also copy and paste assets in the workspace tree. So for an example, we've configured up a few sites in this workspace here today under location. If I liked the way I configured up this text file source and I like this dashboard that I've created, I can just copy it and paste it and get a duplicate. So you don't need to reconfigure all those dashboards or reconfigure all those custom charts, all those data sources as well. You can just copy and paste. And if, for example, we copy and paste a text file source using FTP as the transport type, of course, we could, it will create a unique FTP username when we do that automatically as well. Let's check out a couple of these questions just here. Chat to me offline. Not a worry, Brent. I look forward to chatting afterwards. That's fine. The max size. So when you're configuring up, let's just quickly run through how to bring in attachment image. So in this workspace just here, I want to create not a data source, sorry, in this location, I want to create not a data source, but an attachment source. This is how we bring in our live images. Configuration down here, max images, we've got 10, or you can actually adjust that to as many as you like. Okay, I think we bring it up to about 100. And then remove after so many days. So let's just see where this takes us. We might have put a limit at 100, I'll just double confirm. There we go. Yep. So you can bring it up to a max image of up to 100. And of course, after that, we'll start deleting after so many days. But when configuring up the attachment source, two different methods of bringing it in. So a lot of these remote cameras have the ability to push an image via FTP or email. So they're the two transport types that we're providing to you just here. If it's FTP, you will be supplied with a unique FTP username, or if it's email, you're provided with a unique email address to send those images. eagle.io will receive them and update them in the dashboard and on the map view in real time. So your image icon will change here as well. And you can always go to the list view, look at your attachments and go to the image gallery and actually flick through all your different site photos that are coming in. Okay. Well, I believe that if you guys wanted to discuss pricing about eagle.io, reach out to me afterwards. You can get us at Oregon@eagle.io or sales@eagle.io. Flick through some of the details and I might give you a call or come back to you by email about a different pricing plans, probably just a couple of questions about your data network and how it's structured, and we'll be able to provide you with a plan that meets your needs. If you guys haven't been exposed to a trial and you'd like another one, you can always request that from the website or come directly to me and I can help you with that. But we're trying to make things as friendly and intuitive as possible with dealing with your time series data. Again, if there's any further questions you want to talk about afterwards, please reach out to me. I'd love to chit chat. But I think that concludes this demo for today. I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you for your time.